How things can go wrong for new starters. Conversations about mining. Hi, Jess. How are you?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Andrew. How you going?
Yeah, really good. Thank you. So today's question is how things can go wrong on site for new starters. So I've got a little bit of a story that I'm going to tell, and then I'm sure you've got a story that you can tell about how things have gone wrong. So about 3 years ago, we helped a guy get a nipper's job on site, and he turned up. He'd done the training, and he did all the inductions on his first day to go with the nipper to do the buddy thing on site. They did the morning meeting, and they dropped everybody off to work, and she drove up around the corner and burst into tears on him. Because apparently she was instructed that she was supposed to train him on how to be a nipper, and then she was going to go off and learn how to drive a truck. The only problem was that the person that was supposed to be training her to be a nipper, they sacked him on the last day that they were in before they flew out, and they expected her to know how it all worked. And she said he didn't teach her anything. So she was going upstairs to quit because she didn't know how to do the job properly and felt that in over her head. He calmed her down and he said, well, I followed the morning meeting, so I know what we've got to do. You know where everything is around the mine. She knew where everything was in the mine, and he knew how it all worked. So they worked together for the next 2 weeks and got the job done. And they ended up, she ended up staying and he ended up making a go of it, and they sort of worked with each other. And it just shows you, and that was the whole idea behind the training when we wrote it as a group of shift bosses. We knew people were being parachuted into these jobs where they weren't given the best of chances, or their circumstances, were fighting against them. So we wanted to give them all the tools, if they were parachuted in, that they could make it work for themselves. And that happened about 3 years ago now. It's not an unusual story. It's mining is what it is. Gold's $3,650 an ounce at the moment. It's a huge boom. They need bums in seats. People are moving everywhere around the place, in the top jobs as well as the bottom jobs. It's just crazy at the moment. So you need to expect craziness when you go in, unfortunately, and be ready for worst case scenario. But that's how things can go wrong, unfortunately. Have you got a story about that?
I do, and I was just thinking, if he hadn't have completed your training, they both probably would have quit, and that's where we come back to,
Yep.
going in as a green level. It's a 50-50 whether you're going to last. And if he didn't have that training, they would have both gone off and done something else and hated mining probably, and
Yeah.
never gone back again.
In most situations, when you go in, you end up having to rely on the buddy. And if the buddy's no good, or you got a personality clash, or they've just been shown themselves, like in this case, and they don't know, you're left up a really shitty creek without a paddle, sort of thing.
Yeah.
It just is what it is.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened to me. So luckily I was stubborn and I had a chefing background. So I was, used to hard work and, manual labor, and also I guess working in a male dominated environment. Most of the guys were really awesome, but the guy I got buddied up with was an older guy, probably in his 50s, and he hated women anyway, I think. Like, he was a real piece of work. But he just didn't speak to me at all. And he was Macedonian, but he'd been there for 10 or 15 years. I knew he could speak English, but he pretended he couldn't. And he was just so rude and passive aggressive to me for probably about 3 swings. So probably a good 3 months. I was going in and just having to figure it out for myself. And like I said, if I wasn't so stubborn and didn't have a bit of, initiative myself to get in there and just try and figure things out and ask other people questions, I would have cried and gone home after like the first week. It could have been really horrible. Luckily, the other guys on my crew were awesome, and they knew he was a bit of a dick. So they, kind of gave me bits of info here and gave me bits of info there. But if you just went in and didn't have that type of personality and really struggled with not being told or shown what to do like that, it wasn't nice. It was really awkward, and it was horrible. And eventually he warmed up to me and he ended up being really cool. But it was horrible, and I easily could have left and gone, stuff this, I don't want to do this anymore. And we had quite a few, at the time that I was training, we had 2 or 3 other girls come through that all quit within about 3 or 4 days with that same guy. So you get people like that, unfortunately. You get them in all workplaces, but a lot of the time, if they have been there a long time and they're good at their job at what they do, it's just like, oh, well, it's easier to just churn through the newbies than to replace this guy.
Yeah. So, I had that situation happened to me when I started nippering. Like people have heard me talk about Tim before on the jumbo operator I got put with. Before me, he'd gone through 7 nippers in 6 months. And I was actually due to go up onto the trucks, and the foreman called me in. I thought I was going to be in trouble, and he was like, "You've been with Tim for 4 months. Nobody else has lasted that long. We'd like you to stay with him a bit longer. I know you're supposed to go up onto the trucks, but that's not happening at the moment. But I am going to pay you truck wages," which was more than what the nipper was getting at that stage. And so I was like, "Okay, no worries." And I ended up staying with him for another 3 months before they put me up onto a truck. And it was good. It was good like that. But he was straight out. You're the only guy that's lasted, and that was just because Tim used to yell at me, and I used to do what he yelled at. Sort of thing. It was just not anything special. It was just just doing what he wanted, and he was like your guy. He was the guy, and the guy making all the money, and he could be difficult at times, and you get that in any workplace. So that's why I think the 3-step plan's a really good way to go with all this.
I really think it is too, because you can go in and someone like that's kind of set in their ways. If you might we're making it out to be the worst of the worst. It's not always like this. Obviously, you could go in and work with someone that's awesome, that you totally get along with, and that is amazing and wants to train you. But you've got to remember too that a lot of the time, especially in these entry-level roles, they've had 20 people come in before you and fail. So they're all a bit worn down by the process too. They're like, man, I don't want to put too much effort into this guy, because are they going to last?
Yep.
And that makes the world of difference if you can go in there and talk the talk and know how things work, and they're like, oh wow, this is going to be awesome, this person knows what they're expecting, I don't have to tell them all the basic crap, like this is going to be awesome.
Yep.
And it will just make your life
we had a guy come through about 18 months ago. He sent us a message. It's on the Wall of Fame page, and he says something like, "Oh, you should have seen the look on the foreman, on the shift boss's face when I jumped in the ute, and I knew what a scaling bar was, and I knew what a bogger was, and I knew what it all was. It was just relief." That you didn't have to go through the whole process again. And that's what a lot of people, if you can use all the right terms, and they know that they have to build on your knowledge that you got out of the training and not start from scratch, it just changes completely how they approach you and how you do with the crew. That education can be really important to surviving that first 6 months. So that's what happens, unfortunately. It is what it is. Not trying to scare anybody, just trying to give you a reality check with everything that we do on the channel. It can be pretty brutal sometimes, unfortunately.
Yeah, it can.
Yep. So if you've got any questions about the industry, please send them through. And if you could share this video around and like and subscribe the channel. Thanks.
Thanks.